with your host Sana, where we explore soul stirring episodes and stories and conscious conversations that nourish the heart, challenge the mind, and invite us all to live a little more intentionally and grounded. Well, today we are unpacking a very powerful truth many avoid: the myth of being healed. My guest, Erica, is not your typical spiritual teacher, but she blends neuroscience and spirituality, corporate resilience with intuitive trust, and makes woo feel grounded and real. From public health to theta healing and from burnout to breakthroughs, Erica has walked the line between high performance and higher consciousness. So she's here to help us explore why healing isn't a destination, it is a relationship, a way of being, not doing. And maybe, just maybe, we can drop the pressure to arrive and instead embrace the beauty of being human. So, with that, Erica, welcome to the show, and it is such an honor to have you with us.
Thank you so much for having me. I love that introduction. I was like, "Hey, I'm excited to tackle all of these things today."
Lovely, lovely, Erica. Okay, so let's begin before we talk about the topic. So, really, this is a ritual on all of my shows that before we start talking about the topic, I always request my guests to share their personal journey. I mean, what was that journey like, which brought them into the world of the work they are doing? So, if you would like to share a bit about your journey, I mean, what brought you to the world of healing, mindfulness? And neuroscience, of course.
Yeah, thank you for, that question, and I'll take you all the way back. When I was growing up, I went to Catholic church, and I literally loved it. I can't explain to you why it was so enjoyable. I would go by myself, and I just enjoyed the music, I enjoyed the word, I enjoyed all of it. And then at some point around 8th grade, so for those not in the US, what is that, like 13 years old, 14 years old? I couldn't do it anymore. I had been bullied, I was having bad relationships with friends, and I just said, "Screw it. I'm done. God's not doesn't have my back." And so I left, and for 20 or 15 years, I focused on work and this world and matter and achievement and just kept running for something that would make me feel whole. That's not the language I would use, but that's the language I will use here. And around 28, I started to tell myself that there was no reason to dream anymore, that this is life, this is what it is, deal with it. That is a really interesting place to be at the young age of 28, and finally, I had this come to Jesus with myself where, "Listen, you've got a lot more life to live. There is definitely something out there that can bring you joy." And so I started my journey into both entrepreneurship and self-help. And as I did that, I came across a lot of teachers who talked about spirituality, talked about law of attraction, talked about all those things. And I really wanted something more for my life is what I came to. And so I started to do all these practices, do all these things, try them out, and they worked to some extent. I could get a little bit further, but I really couldn't crack the code on enjoying my life, which sounds so silly when I say it, but I know a lot of people can relate. I couldn't figure that out. And then I kept at it because I was there are people who are joyous and happy and fulfilled and successful and all these things around me. It has to be available for me. And so I kept going with it. And over the past decade, what I've come to realize is that spirituality and healing, it looks so much different than what I thought it did. And because of the things that happened in my life, everything from getting fired on maternity leave to, uh, mm, having, I won't say like an awful birth, but, tough births, things of that nature. I I've had to walk my talk, miscarriages, things like that. I've had to walk my talk, and I'm on the other side realizing what it really looked like to commit to my own growth, commit to consciousness, commit, to spirituality, and so all of the foibles, all of the mistakes, and then all of lifing really has landed me here, recognizing that God's for spirit, whatever you wanna call it, it is there, and this earth is a playground, and while quote unquote "bad things" happen and things that are less than ideal definitely, eh, are happening in front of us, we're here for something more, and when we can remember that we are love, that we are consciousness, that we are, a child of God or whatever your child of the universe, whatever your language is, we can we can not only get through the hardships, but we can use them to show others and ourselves what we really are.
Mm. That's quite a journey, Erica. And one thing which I realize or I learn is sometimes we tend to give up, having adverse circumstances or um, having that negative energy in form of people uh, or events or circumstances around us. But you you were always thinking that why not me? So we normally we ask, why me, God, why am I the one who is suffering? But you asked, why not me? Why shouldn't I deserve all the happiness and the joys? So that is really really inspiring. And um, thank you for sharing that journey, Erica. And now let's talk about the word healed. So, since we are talking about the myth of being healed, why do you believe it's a myth?
It's this interesting paradox and nuance, right? In that as souls coming into this world, we're perfect. We're perfect. We are not broken. We did not come in broken. We are a piece of the creator. So we are whole, perfect, and love. And yet, when we get here, we forget all of that. And so we have to remember, right? And for a lot of us, that looks like healing. It looks like doing the quote unquote work, all of which is true, but it's this like really interesting paradox where w- when we remember what we are,
Mhm.
healing never, like healing is almost, not almost, healing's irrelevant, right? So it's this like really, really interesting thing where you're perfect. And to remember, we've got to go through this journey of healing. And when we start to remember that, we can start to enjoy the process of healing ourselves versus constantly looking at it like work or constantly um, it- obsessing or being in it in such a negative way, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. Hmm. I I I understand. I mean, I love that you're calling out this narrative because um so many people they feel ashamed for still feeling off, or after doing the work. It's almost like the journey gets shamed if it's not linear.
Mm.
So makes sense, makes sense. And in your journey you mentioned about walking your talk. So and you mentioned about getting fired during maternity leave. So how did your own healing deepen after that event?
So it's that walking the talk piece, right? So I had the language for a lot of
Mhm.
things. I think a lot of us in the mindfulness space, the mindful living space, we know the we know the word detachment. We know the concept of trusting the universe. Uh, we say things like let go and let God, right? Like these are words that are regularly said. And yet it could feel really hard to do. Um, or it feels applicable to only certain situations, right? Like, okay, I can do all that when it's a stranger on the street, right? And I can wish them well and love them from afar. But like when it's on our own partner, like we cannot forgive, right? Like we can let go and let God when it's finding a parking spot on the street, but like absolutely not when it comes to our money. So there are these interesting places where we can live these out, but in the bigger things that trigger us, or we let trigger us, right, it's really challenging. And so when that incident happened, I was actually in a really good place mentally. I'd been doing the work for a while. I was actually really enjoying my time at home with my baby. But when that happened, it flipped my life upside down, right? I had to really lean in to this stuff, and I had to really pull out all of my bag of tricks, right? All of my practices because mm, we we often let fear, and I did too, right? We let fear of what could be overtake us and overwhelm us. And the interesting thing about this work, right, when we remember that, yes, healing is part of the journey when we're in this human body, but like we never needed to be healed because we were perfect, right? It's like it was coming back to that truth over and over and over again. Okay, I'm scared, but the only thing that's true is love. Okay, I'm freaking out. Okay, these are my thoughts. I accept them and my true nature is one with the creator. And so it was this repetition over and over and over again. And what we know right from neuroscience is that that is one of the best ways to rewire your brain is through repetition. So I would fire up the truths, set into the feeling because feeling plus thought, feeling plus intention is what draws things to you and makes things real and rewires your brain. So I would have to do that 1,000 times throughout the day, but I would do it. And when I really went in to these deep, scary places, what I came out with was, "Oh, I'm completely held, and I'm gonna own the parts of this that were my fault, not only from perhaps some actions, but more importantly, through, um, what's the word? Through attraction-based law or, like, calling it in because I wanted to XYZ." And so it's been yeah, it was really hard, but also really great because it enabled me to really root down and really ground into my practices and what I believe to be true and come out the other side and say, "Okay, that was actually the greatest thing that ever happened to me because I'm here now, because I'm doing what I'm doing now. Without it, I wouldn't be talking to you."
Wow, that is inspiring, Erika. And talking about your coaching, so you coach high achieving spiritual seekers. So I'm really curious to know what common healing myths do you see them carrying, especially those tied to productivity or getting the job or the work perfectly done, because this is more of a common with high achievers.
Mhm. So the first is that it's hard. It has to be hard. So there's a lot of language we hear get a lot in the mindfulness community, the breakdown before the breakthrough. But you don't have to break down before you break through. There are nudges and whispers and into intuitive hits that come to you before the breakdown. It's our lack of willing to listen or to trust ourselves that lead to the breakdown. So that's one of the biggest is that it has to be hard, that it has to be painful, that these breakdowns are what healing really looks like. And I don't know about you, but one of the things that I have found to be the most healing is joy. Like things that bring me joy, being able to be present and be peaceful, those are also massive healing episodes for me and for others when they allow themselves to be in those spaces to let that stuff in. So that's the biggest, and I have a couple others, but that's the biggest.
I agree with it. I agree with you. And um, this particularly, and I also, agree with you because things they can be as small as, listening to your favorite song or maybe something which is nostalgic, and they can be so much of a soul nourishing experience or moments. And this particularly I realized when um, I kind of let go of that. I'm always working and working and working because I experienced a lot of burnout, especially 2 years back, which kind of subconsciously fed me this idea that no, this isn't for me. I need to figure this out because this is hampering me physically, mentally. It's hampering the relationship ships with my family. Uh, so it's kind of consuming me inside out. So I completely connect with that.
Yeah,
And
we oh,
yeah, Rika, go ahead, go ahead.
yeah, it's really fascinating, right? We work so hard and we do so many things because we want certain results, and what we don't understand is that we are working and looking to create income and experiences to feel joy. So if the end goal is joy, why not start there? Why not use that as a modality? Because yes, healing can't like does hurt, right? We do cry tears. We do yell out. Those are natural pieces of the human experience. And that is not the only thing that the only way I should say healing needs to look like. We're seeing here, particularly in America, right? All these psychedelics and ayahuasca ceremonies and plant medicine. And that stuff is very helpful, but it's like we want to go big and bulldoze and get it all up, but you're just repeating a pattern of having to work really hard and for things to be really painful in order to get joy. And you're repeating patterns in your healing that you were using at work, which is why so many people become obsessed with healing, right? So they take from workaholism to healaholism. Is that a word? Like, becoming obsessed with healing. And it's because instead of saying, joy is possible. Listening to music, these little pieces are available to me. They're taking their bulldozing patterns and placing them into the healing space.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I mean, it can be subtle. It can be a slow process. It doesn't have to be very loud or something. Oh my goodness, like an epiphany every time. Yeah, makes sense. Makes sense, Erica. Um, interesting. Can you also teach us, or just help us be know about this difference between being healed and then living healed? I mean, what's the distinction in your view, Erica?
So being healed and living healed. So I would say, one, this is a really good question. And two, when I think about living healed, that looks like living your life. Right? When we are in the process, like the reason we do these things from meditation to if you're doing Reiki or, other energy healing modalities or breath work, these different things, right? This work, working with coaches, bringing inner child work, all of it. The reason we're doing it all is so that we can hold the capacity for joy, so that we can live a life that we enjoy. And so living healed doesn't look like constantly being in it, like, in the thick of it, right? Like, in in the in the bowels of healing, if you will. It looks like when you have issues going through it, because that's what happens as humans. We go in, sometimes we let ourselves get triggered, right? Things happen, life happens, the world is a little wild right now. Okay, we can be thrown off kilter, but we're our majority of our focus is actually on living a life full of joy. So when I think about living healed, it's that. And then being healed, you know, eh, this is an interesting one because the first thought that comes to mind when you say being healed, it's this idea of us knowing that we were always whole. So when we understand that we were never separated from our source, right? We're healed. And sometimes that's a moment, sometimes that's a week-long experience. Sometimes we have to come back and remember, right? So i- it's a never-ending journey of the being, but the idea of being healed is like recognizing that you were never separate. And so that is so important. And when you get there, you can live healed. Does that make sense?
It does. It does. And this such a powerful shift, Erica, because uh, rather than just trying hard to fix ourselves, it's more about giving it time organically to meet ourselves. And of course, as we talked about it, healing can also look like laughing again, again enjoying the small moments of happiness or joy, and even if the pain is still there in the room.
Absolutely. It, it's when we remember what we really are, right? When we start from the place of, I am whole, I am perfect, I'm a child of God, universe, whatever your language is, we can move forward in a way that one speeds up, right? Which is what we all we all kind of want a little bit, right? Right. Speeds up the process of whatever it is that we're going through to get to the other side. But it also allows us to show up in a way that's not constantly breaking us down. And that's where I think uh, we get in this loop of like being like turning our obsession from work into our obsession with healing is when we think that we're something that's broken and has to be fixed, when really we're perfect and whole and we're just remembering. We are remembering. And it it takes everyone multiple times to remember. You're not off kilter or broken because you don't remember. You're just on a different level of the game. As you move up, you'll forget less and less, right? That you are separate from what you are from your source. But it takes time and that's okay. Like the as long as you remember, you're doing it right.
Mm. Great, great, Erica. So before we wrap up, for someone listening who feels like they have done all the right things, they have clicked all the check boxes, journaling, therapy, inner child work, but they are still feeling stuck. What would you say to them?
I'm like, wow, great question. I will tell you the first thing that comes up is take the pressure off. Like, take the pressure off of yourself. Doing all that stuff with an expectation that it will heal you or get you to where you want to be is actually what's getting in your way in the first place. And so if you can take the pressure off, take the expectations off, that would be my first piece of advice. And just let your body have that exhale it's been seeking. And then the other piece I would say is what we've been talking about, right? Go find something joyful. Go listen to a song. Go outside if you enjoy nature. Put your feet on the ground. Or if you enjoy a certain food or a coffee, go have that. Let yourself have that moment because it's in the joy. It's in those moments that we are really connected with what we are and allows us to hear the guidance of what's next. So a lot of times when we're feeling stuck, we're like searching, right, for the next step, for the answer, for where we're to go. And when you get into a vibration of what is true, like of your true nature, you're able to hear it. So go do that instead of this like fix, fix, fix. Cause when you do that, you're in lack energy. You're saying, I'm broken and you're attracting more of it. So go do the opposite of that. And it will allow you to hear your guidance a lot quicker and more easily.
That is such an important reminder, Erica. Thank you. Thank you so, so much for shifting this perspective. And I know it will be overwhelming initially, but I would suggest all of our listeners to do a bit of self introspection and think about this. And of course, for more help, Erica, if our listeners would like to connect with you, what's the best way to do that?
Sure, you can find me on TikTok or on Instagram at Erica Ballard underscore, or you can email me at erica@ericaballard.co, C-O, not C-O-M.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Erica. And thank you for this conversation. It was such a gift. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So, listeners, Erica reminds us that healing isn't a checkbox or a finish line. It is a sacred, divine rhythm of remembering, releasing, and reconnecting to our wholeness again and again. And if today's conversation stirred something in you, take a moment, breathe it in, and let go of the pressure to be done, because you are not broken, you are blooming. Until next time, I'm your host Sana, and this is the Mindful Living. Stay gentle, stay curious, and keep living your truth. Thank you.